Hey there, my fellow lunatics, and welcome to Dakon's Madhouse. Azeos, the Sky Titan. He's the first major boss of Corekeeper, and the difficulty curve in beating him versus the previous bosses is a big one. Unlike the previous bosses, simply locating his lair is not enough. Azeos flies high above near the top of the cave ceiling. To coax him down, you need to entice him with something shiny. And once he lands, the fight itself is a unique challenge. Let's take a deep dive into Azeos, the Sky Titan, what his strategies are, and what it takes to defeat him. Let's talk gear. Azeos is a bigger challenge than previous bosses. At the very least, you're going to want a Scarlet armor set or a dodge set. Check out my video on early game as well as end game dodge builds for info on dodge sets. For this video, however, I am going to focus on the Scarlet set. First, you're going to want to grab yourself a full set of Scarlet armor. Now, I've reinforced mine as well. For the necklace, I'm using the polished copper cross necklace. For my rings, if you're using ranged, go with the polished gold crystal rings. However, if you're using melee, the polished swift ring or the clot ring, any combination of those two is perfectly fine. These are excellent rings. Be sure to equip a wooden shield in your offhand. Now, if you have beaten Ivy, then you will have access to the Toxic Defender. If you do, go for that. However, in this video, I'm going to assume that you have not beaten Ivy yet. Now, when it comes to your weapon for ranged, your options are a little limited at this point. The iron bow works fine. It's the easiest one to get, and it's got the best attack speed for the easy items to get. The fireball staff could work, but its attack speed is a little slow, and you will find yourself struggling, especially if you're by yourself. However, if you do have a friend with you, the fireball staff is perfectly fine for this boss. If you can, though, you are going to want to get your hands on the blowpipe. The blowpipe is by far the best weapon for ranged users for Azeos. You can get this in the mold dungeons, which at this stage may be a little challenging, so you may have a hard time getting this. However, with a full Scarlet set, you are capable of finding the blowpipe, so just be patient, move through those mold dungeons slowly, and you'll eventually get your hands on one of these. For melee users, the Scarlet Sword or the Scarlet Dagger are perfectly good melee weapons to use. They are craftable at the Scarlet Anvil. If you have defeated Malagaz and if you've been able to get your hands on the Ritual Dagger, this is a much better melee weapon, and I would recommend getting your hands on this. And if you are very lucky and you have managed to find all the little pieces and you have got the Rune Song by this point, which is entirely possible, just not probable, the Rune Song is by far the best weapon at this stage in the game, but I'm not expecting you to get it. At this point, I would figure the Ritual Dagger or the Scarlet Sword are the two most likely melee weapons that you will have at this point in the game. For pets, I definitely do not recommend using the Subterrier. The Subterrier is not a good pet for this fight because Azeos is immune to stun, and the Subterrier's biggest advantage is his ability to stun enemies. So don't use the Subterrier. What you're going to want is either the Owl Lux for its ability to buff you with like that crit hit chance, extra damage, that sort of thing, or the Embertail for the ability to apply additional burn damage to Azeos, as he does take burn damage, and that's an excellent way to really get him consistently taking damage, especially since he does have healing abilities, which we'll get into in a minute. But because of those healing abilities, I actually really recommend the Fan Hair. The Fan Hair has the ability to apply a poison, which reduces enemy healing by 75%, and you're going to want to buff that up as much as possible. And I'm going to use the Fan Hair in this because of its ability to reduce the healing that Azeos is going to be able to have. Be sure to stock up on greater healing potions at the distillery table. You're going to need heartberries and poison slime in order to make the greater healing potions. Finally, let's discuss buff food. you're gonna need it. We've got a bunch of options for buff food, and while what you're seeing here may look a little complicated, you're not gonna eat all of this, so don't worry. Let's just break it down a little bit. All right, first, let's take a look at the Pafungi. The Pafungi is an important crop, and you are going to find this in the mold dungeon, so be sure to explore that, especially while you're trying to find that blowpipe. Get your hands on Pafungi seeds, start growing this crop. The Pafungi reduces the amount of damage that you take from bosses. Now, if you happen to have fished up Spirit Veil, then you can craft these Puffy Veil fish balls, which will improve your movement speed as well as reduce the amount of damage that you take from bosses. Now, if you have not fished up any Spirit Veil, use the Bomb Pepper. The Bomb Pepper also provides a movement speed buff. It's just not as good as the Spirit Veil. So if you don't have any Spirit Veils, use the Pafungi and the Bomb Pepper, and that will get you the spicy mold cheese. It does the exact same thing. It's just your movement speed isn't quite as good as it would be with the Puffy Veil fish balls. Next, we've got the Bloat Oat. This is also something that you can only get once you have moved into Azeos' wilderness. So once you start getting your hands on these seeds, start planting the Bloat Oat. If you fished up any Black Seal Urchin, then the Black Seal Urchin and the Bloat Oat combine very nicely to give you thorns damage, as well as a significant boost to your healing and your overall food. You also happen to get a with to your armor with the Black Steel Urchin. Now, if you haven't fished up the Black Steel Urchin, you can use Carrick. Carrick will give you that armor boost, but it's not going to give you the Thorns boost. That's the big advantage of the Black Steel Urchin. So if you don't have this, use Carrick, combine that with Bloat Oat, and you'll get this Filling Stone Dip Snack, which will improve your armor, and it will improve your overall health over time and your food. Next, we are looking at the Pink Palace fish here, which is something that you can fish up in Azeos' wilderness. If you happen to fish this up with the Emerald Feather fish, then you will get the Pink Feather Fillet. This will improve your critical hit chance and improves your melee attack speed. So this one is primarily designed for melee users because of that melee attack speed boost, although the critical hit chance is good for anyone. If you don't have the Emerald Feather fish, then you can use heartberries instead. Use the Pink Palace fish with the heartberry to get the pink berry pudding. This will also give you that melee attack speed. It's just not going to give you that critical hit chance boost. Now, for ranged users, you don't want to use the Pink Palace fish. You want to use the Teal Palace fish. So if you have the Teal Palace fish with the Emerald Feather fish, then that will give you the Teal Feather Fillet. That gives you that critical hit chance, and it gives you a ranged attack speed boost. If you don't have the Emerald Feather fish, use the Heartberry. You're still going to get that ranged attack speed boost, you're just not going to get that critical hit chance. Okay, next on the list here, we have got a couple of options that include the Glow Tulip. So I'm using the Glow Tulip just to give a little bit of extra glow, but if you are ranged, then you're going to want to use the Devil Worm. If you fished up the Devil Worm, then this will give you that glow boost as well as a boost to your ranged damage. Now, if you're melee, you don't want the Devil Worm, you want the Mold Shark. Now, if you fish up the Mold Shark, then instead you're going to get a boost to your melee damage with this Moldy Tulip Salad. And lastly, this one is only beneficial for melee users, so if you're ranged, there's no need to take this one. You've got the Grumpkin, which you can get this crop through the Halloween event. So change your settings, switch over to Halloween, get your hands on some Grumpkin seeds. Fish up the Vampire Eel, and you are going to get life on melee hit and a boost to your mining damage. Now, the boost to your mining damage is only going to matter if your skills are high enough that you have miner strength, where a percentage of your mining damage is added to your melee damage. If you don't have this, then you aren't going to get any benefits from having high mining damage for your melee. Just be sure to take that into account. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use these foods here because I am ranged primarily. I will show off some melee as well. These are the ones that I want to eat for ranged, and these are the ones that I want to eat for melee. And now that you know what to eat and you know what your gear is, let's talk about finding and summoning Azeos. The quickest way to locate Azeos is with a scanner of the Sky Titan. Now, in order to get this, you have to defeat the Hive Mother, and then in the Hive Mother's little statue thing here, you can build the Ancient Hologram Pod. It costs 10 ancient gemstones and 10 mechanical parts. Once you have purchased that and placed it, you will be able to purchase any of these scanners. The one we're worried about is Azeos the Sky Titan scanner. The ancient feathers that you need in order to purchase this scanner are found randomly throughout Azeos' wilderness. They're little blue feathers lying on the ground. You will find a bunch of them at Azeos' arena as well, so if you happen to stumble upon it, that's a great place to get all of these extra feathers. Not that you'll need it if you've happened to have stumbled upon it. Also, at this vendor, you can purchase the large, shiny, glimmering object. This is the item that you need in order to summon Azeos. As you can see, it costs 10 of every kind of bar that you can get at this point, from copper to scarlet. Requires 5 gold bars and 3 ancient gemstones. If you have purchased the scanner, then just use it by right-clicking on it, and it will do this funny thing, and then open up to right here, which will show you exactly where Azeos is. Azeos Arena is easy to spot. It is a circular island with bird poop everywhere. You will be able to hear Azeos overhead. His shadow will pass by every few seconds, and the screen will shake. To summon him, you just place the shiny glimmering object on the ground in the middle of the arena, and poof, Azeos is summoned. So Azeos' primary attack is to summon beams of energy in 4 specific patterns. Circular, like you see here, random, horizontal, and vertical. Azeos will occasionally also summon several blue crystals. These crystals can heal Azeos. You will know that they are healing him when these beams of energy start to appear, connecting to Azeos. You can see his hit points slowly go up. The more of these crystals that are connected to him, the faster he will heal. If you destroy the crystal, it will stop the healing process. When Azeos reaches 40% health, he enrages, teleporting more often and summoning more beams and creating crystals more often. Alright y'all, I just want to take 2 seconds to ask you to please hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. It does really help grow my channel. Alright, enough shameless plugging. More video! Before you start the fight, you're going to want to clear out and expand the area. This island is way too small to fight Azeos on, so bring some ground tiles with you. Don't use bridge tiles because Azeos' beams can destroy bridge tiles, but it can't destroy ground tiles, so you're going to want to fill in this gap with ground of some sort so that you have the ability to actually cross this when Azeos teleports to the other side and starts healing himself over here with a bunch of crystals, so that you don't have to place tiles and rush over to him. You'll be able to move around as you need to. You will need a little over 300 of whatever ground tile you bring, so bring enough. Be sure to place a bed nearby, but you're going to want to put it at least 30 or 40 tiles away so that it doesn't accidentally get destroyed by one of Azeos' beams. Maybe 50 tiles away. You're going to want to be a little ways away. So real quick, let's talk some cheese strats before we go over beating him without any kind of cheese. A couple of ways to cheese this fight. Azeos himself, his beam attacks, the crystals, nothing that Azeos does will break spike traps. So you can place spike traps all over the arena, and wherever Azeos is, the spike traps will hit him. Now, it's not going to do a lot of extra damage, but if you're finding that you're getting him like 5–10% away from dead and you just can't quite get him over, then place a bunch of spike traps around the arena. I think that will help. Now, the primary cheese strat for defeating Azeos is to stand far away from him. You want to stand way on the very edge. So if he's summoned in this little 2x2 square here, then we're going to want to stand, you know, like about right here where we can just barely see him over on the right hand side of our screen, and then we can just shoot him from the edge. And if we do that, we're far enough away, he will not move, he will not teleport. He will still create his crystals, he will still shoot off his beams, so you are going to want to be careful and make sure that you bring healing potions, because you can't move if you're doing this cheese strat. If you move, Azeos will start to teleport around. So once you're in this position, you have to stand still and you have to shoot him at range without moving, which means that his beam attacks will hit you. You're going to want to make sure you have that shield equipped so that you can block those beam attacks, and you're going to want to make sure that you have greater healing potions so that you can survive getting hit by multiple beams. But as long as you just stand here shooting and you're on the very edge, Azeos will not move and you will be able to kill him quite easily. Now, fortunately, I have learned from doing this test just now that you actually can move up and down. It is safe for you to move up and down without him starting to teleport again, but you need to keep that distance. Do not move closer to him, or he will eventually start moving and teleporting. Now, unfortunately, you cannot see his hit points. So you just have to go blind and hope that you're killing him. You will be able to see when he enrages, but that's it. Now, the whole thing with this cheese strat is it is a race against time. Because you are not actively destroying his crystals, then his crystals can get to a point where they will be healing him more than you will be doing damage. So you need to kill him before he summons too many crystals. You either need to get lucky that he doesn't summon crystals repeatedly, or you just need to have a high enough damage. I recommend having a ranged of at least 50 before you go into this, because if it's below 50, you may not, even with the buff food, be able to dish out enough damage to be able to actually kill him before those crystals get to a point where it's just too much. Now, if you prefer melee or you just don't want to cheese him, you want to actually fight this fight legit, then you're going to need to eat your buff food and be quick about your movements. When Azeos launches a beam attack, move through the opening and then either close in to attack with melee or just keep on shooting him with your bow. If you can't get around his beams, use your shield to block about 70% of the damage and just keep on healing your way through it. Personally, I don't recommend ignoring the first batch of crystals because it can easily overwhelm you. Get those first 3 crystals destroyed, but usually by the point that he summons the second batch of crystals, he should be low enough that you can ignore that second batch of crystals and just take him down. If he's still at about 40% health or so when he summons his second batch of crystals, destroy those as well so that he doesn't use them to heal. This is also where the fan hair comes in handy, as it will reduce Azeos' healing by 75% with its poison. Just continue to dodge and or block those beams while focusing your damage primarily on Azeos. Break those crystals as you need to at the beginning and just keep on repeating this pattern until he dies. After Azeos dies, you will gain the Soul of Azeos. This power gives your melee crits a 10% chance to summon one of Azeos' thunder beams. However, be careful. If one of those beams goes off inside of your base, it will destroy everything in your path. Everything. You will also notice this black glowing orb. This is the boss's respawn timer. When it goes away, you can summon him again. It takes about 5 minutes for the orb to vanish, and then about another 20 seconds or so until the respawn can actually occur again. You will know that you can actually respawn Azeos when you see his shadow appear over the screen once again. The only guaranteed loot from Azeos is the Pile of Chum, which summons a third NPC. This one is fishing focused. as well as the Titan's chest, which is just another double chest for you to use. I think it's pretty cool looking. The rest of Azeos' loot is random. However, the most notable of that loot is the Ancient Pickaxe. This pick is better than the Scarlet Pickaxe and arguably better than the Octarine Pickaxe as well. The Octarine Pickaxe will provide you with more mining damage, but this one is faster. Azeos also drops the Sky Ring, which improves your critical hit chance as well as your melee damage, as well as Azeos' Beak Necklace, which gives you 3 life on melee hit and a bonus to your mining damage. If you're a melee player, both of these are excellent items to get your hands on. The last decent item that Azeos drops is Azeos' Dash Feather, which is basically just an upgraded version of the Dash Feather that you're probably already using. So if you use that Swift Feather a lot, you're going to want to replace it with Azeos' Dash Feather as soon as possible. And I think that just about wraps it up for today's video. I hope you enjoyed yourself, and until next time, stay crazy.